I never believed in paranormal activity until I became a real estate agent. 3 years into my career, I've seen enough unexplained phenomena to make me question everything I thought I knew about empty houses. But nothing prepared me for what happened at 1247 Elm Street, a property that's been vacant for 2 years, yet somehow managed to rack up a $340 electricity bill last month. It started with a routine listing. The Hendersons had moved to Florida, leaving behind their grandmother's 1920s Victorian house. Beautiful property, great bones, but it had been sitting empty since Margaret Henderson passed away in 2022. The family was finally ready to sell. During my initial walkthrough, I noticed something odd. The electricity had been shut off months ago. I had the utility company's disconnection notice in my file. Yet as I stood in the front yard at dusk, taking photos for the listing, I swear I saw a warm yellow glow flickering in the upstairs bedroom window. I called the utility company the next morning. "Ma'am, I'm looking at our records, and service to that address was terminated in March 2023, the representative confirmed. There's no active account. But the neighbors had a different story. Mrs. Chen from next door approached me during my second visit. "You're selling the Henderson place? Good. Maybe whoever buys it can explain why the lights are on every night at 9:47 p.m. "The lights? 3rd floor, corner bedroom. Every single night for the past 6 months. Always the same time, always the same room. My husband thinks it's squatters, but we've never seen anyone come or go." I decided to investigate. That evening, I parked across the street at 9:30 p.m. and waited. At exactly 9:47 p.m., a soft amber light appeared in the 3rd floor window. Not the harsh fluorescent glow of modern bulbs, but something warmer, more like candlelight or an old incandescent fixture. The rational part of my brain kicked in immediately. Timer switches. That had to be it. Old houses often had automatic lighting systems, and maybe the family had forgotten to disable them. I made a mental note to check during my next walkthrough. But when I entered the house the following day, I discovered something unsettling. The 3rd floor had been converted into Margaret Henderson's art studio, and it was completely empty. No furniture, no fixtures, no electrical connections beyond bare wires where light fixtures had been removed. The ceiling fan was gone. Even the outlet covers had been taken off, leaving empty electrical boxes. Yet that night, the light appeared again. Same time, same intensity, same window. I called the Henderson family in Florida. Margaret's granddaughter, Susan, sounded confused when I described the phenomenon. "That's impossible," she said. "We had the house professionally cleaned out in April. Grandma's art studio was completely gutted. We even had an electrician remove all the fixtures because some of the wiring was old and potentially dangerous. Could there be some kind of timer system we missed? Not in that room. Grandma never used electric lighting up there anyway. She said artificial light ruined the colors in her paintings. She always worked by natural daylight or candlelight." This is where the story takes a darker turn. I decided to do some research on the property's history. What I found in the county records made my skin crawl. Margaret Henderson hadn't just lived in that house, she died in that 3rd floor studio. Heart attack, according to the death certificate. She was found by her home health aide the next morning, slumped over an easel, a half-finished painting of her late husband still wet on the canvas. The death had occurred at 9:47 p.m. I shared this information with Mrs. Chen, hoping she might provide some rational explanation. Instead, she added another disturbing detail. "I didn't want to mention this before because it sounds crazy, but my husband has been keeping a log. The lights don't just turn on at 9:47. They dim and brighten in patterns, almost like someone's moving around the room. Sometimes they flicker rapidly, like old bulbs do when they're about to burn out. But the strangest thing is that they always go off at exactly 11:23 p.m. I looked up Margaret's obituary online. Her husband, Robert, had died in 2019 at 11:23 p.m. By this point, I was torn between professional skepticism and genuine unease. I'd shown dozens of empty houses, and I knew all the rational explanations for mysterious phenomena. Old houses settle, creating sounds that seem supernatural. Reflections from passing cars can create the illusion of indoor lighting. Even something as simple as a neighbor's security light bouncing off a mirror can explain mysterious glows. But 1247 Elm Street was defying every logical explanation I could conceive. I decided to bring in an expert. My brother-in-law, Jake, is an electrician with 20 years of experience. If there was a rational explanation for the mysterious lighting, he'd find it. Jake spent 3 hours going through every inch of the house's electrical system. His conclusion was definitive: there's no way lights could be operating in that room. The circuit breakers for the third floor were removed entirely. I checked with a voltage meter, there's zero electrical current flowing to that area. Whatever you're seeing, it's not coming from the house's electrical system. That night, Jake joined me for surveillance. We set up across the street with a camera, determined to document whatever was happening. At 9:47 p.m., the light appeared as usual. But through the camera's zoom lens, we could see something that chilled us both. The glow wasn't uniform like an electric bulb. It moved and flickered with the organic quality of candlelight, and occasionally, we could make out what looked like shadows moving across the window, as if someone was walking back and forth in the room. Jake, the most practical person I know, was speechless. "That's not light," he whispered. "That's something else." The phenomena continued for weeks. Other neighbors began to notice and talk. Mrs. Patterson from 2 houses down mentioned that her dog refused to walk past the Henderson property after dark. The mailman asked if someone had moved back in, because he'd seen someone moving around upstairs several times. But here's the most unsettling part: no one had physically entered the house. I changed all the locks after my first visit, and I was the only one with keys. Every window was secured, the basement was locked, and there were no signs of forced entry. Yet the electricity bill kept coming. When I called the utility company again, they were as baffled as I was. "According to our records, there's no active service to that address," the supervisor told me. "But our automated system is definitely registering power consumption. It's like someone illegally tapped into the grid, but our field technicians can't find any unauthorized connections." The mystery deepened when I discovered that similar phenomena had been reported at the house for decades. I found a newspaper clipping from 1987 mentioning unexplained illumination at the Henderson property. A blog post from 2003 described the same third-floor lighting pattern. Even Margaret's own journal, which Susan eventually found and shared with me, contained entries about Robert's spirit and lights that shouldn't exist. Margaret had been experiencing supernatural activity in her own home for years before her death. The most chilling entry, dated just 2 weeks before Margaret passed away, read, "The lights in Robert's favorite room continued to appear each evening at the time of his passing. I've stopped being frightened by them. In fact, I find them comforting. Perhaps when my time comes, I'll be able to join him in whatever place exists beyond the veil of our physical world." 3 weeks ago, I made the decision to spend a full night inside the house. I know it sounds reckless, but I needed answers. I set up in the living room with a camping chair, flashlight, and fully charged phone. At 9:47 p.m., the familiar glow appeared upstairs. But this time, I heard something else, the faint sound of footsteps above me. Slow, measured steps moving from one end of the studio to the other. I climbed the stairs with my flashlight, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The studio door was closed. I distinctly remembered leaving it open during my last visit. When I turned the handle and pushed it open, the room was filled with the warmest, most beautiful golden light I'd ever seen. But there was nothing there. No source, no electrical fixture, no candles. Just pure, impossibly beautiful illumination that seemed to emanate from the air itself. And in that moment, I felt something I can only describe as profound peace. The fear I'd been carrying for weeks melted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of love and protection. The light faded at 11:23 p.m., just as it always did. I don't have a rational explanation for what's happening at 1247 Elm Street. I've consulted electricians, paranormal investigators, and even a physicist from the local university. No one can explain how light appears in a room with no electrical connections, why it follows such a precise schedule, or how a vacant house can consume electricity that's not being supplied. But I have a theory that goes beyond the rational. I think Margaret and Robert Henderson found a way to exist together in the space they shared for 53 years of marriage. I think love can transcend death in ways our scientific understanding hasn't yet grasped. And I think some houses hold onto the emotions and energy of the people who truly lived within their walls. The Henderson house sold last month to a young couple who weren't bothered by its unusual phenomena. In fact, they found the idea of benevolent spirits rather comforting. They've reported that the lights continue to appear each night, but now they're accompanied by the faint scent of oil paints and roses, Margaret's favorite flower. The electricity bills have stopped coming. So here's my question for anyone reading this: have you ever witnessed unexplained phenomena that defied rational explanation? Do you think some forms of love and connection can exist beyond physical death? And if you had the opportunity to spend a night in a house with confirmed paranormal activity, would you take it? What would you do?